Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Some of the most meaningful jewelry you own isn't new. It's inherited. A ring from a grandmother, a necklace full of memories, but no longer your style. Duke's Jewelers reimagines family heirlooms into custom pieces you'll actually wear and love. Working one-on-one, Duke's designers honor the original story while creating something fresh and modern. Don't let meaningful jewelry sit unused. Let it live on beautifully. Visit Duke's Jewelers in Springville or online at dukesjewelers.com, where old stories become new treasures.
It's time to get the inside info on BYU with Cougar insider Mitch Harper of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Look at that, 4:06 p.m. I just got the email. AJ DeBonsa named to the 2026 John Wooden Award All-American team, announced by the Los Angeles Athletic Club, one of the many feathers in the cap for a phenomenal freshman season for the phenom that is AJ DeBonsa. Joining us on the program right now, Mitch Harper. Mitch, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy to be on as always.
AJ just keeps racking up the All-American awards. I would assume that he'll get, hey now.
We're not done rocking.
I told you we were going to rock out today, man. So
that smells like teen spirit.
All the awards keep filing in for this young man. And it's been interesting because I don't know how, Mitch, but he actually overperformed to the expectations that were already monumental.
He did, and he was excellent this season, and it's just a shame that BYU's not preparing for, a Final Four or made that deep run that everyone was hoping and believing this team was capable of. But he was excellent, and, you'll see tonight a guy like Bruce Branch III, who is going to try to take on the mantle as being next in line to be potentially a one-and-done guy. Obviously, AJ hasn't formally announced, but to me, it makes all the sense in the world to go forward and get that contract rolling and go to the NBA and get that thing going, because what's waiting for you at BYU is just no whistle and no space in the Big 12 and more physical play, and you're almost going to get poked at more in terms of your game where, well, you didn't do this in your freshman year. The NBA loves potential, and AJ already had a ton of potential even when he was a 14-year-old, and he only built off that and was impressive. And I think that's a real big feather in the cap for Kevin Young that NBA teams will probably love about, guys going to BYU, is that you might be a heralded guy, but you'll get better at BYU. And AJ did get better this year. It's just the entire team did not reach the expectations and thoughts of what many believe they were capable of. And that's going to be the challenge for Kevin Young. But if you're a one-and-done prospect, potentially looking at BYU, I think AJ is going to do a world of good for BYU going forward. And you saw that with them getting Bruce Branch, like I said, will be in action tonight on the McDonald's All-American game, and he might be one of the top guys in this game tonight.
Bruce Branch is a five-star guy. He has the potential to be a one-and-done lottery pick, just like AJ, just like Yegor Demon. What does the Cougars need to do to surround Bruce Branch with guys, or what do they need to put together in order to help Bruce Branch reach his potential and that team reach potential next year with a five-star guy? Because BYU is getting these guys. If they want to keep getting them, feels like they've got to take things to another level when it comes to team success.
For sure. And I think, more shooters, and Bruce Branch, I think, is a better three-point shooter than AJ was. And Branch is an excellent, elite catch-and-shoot prospect. I mean, he's not like AJ where he's going to be living in the mid-range game and just no matter what you try to do defensively, still get to a spot. That's not necessarily Bruce Branch, but excellent three-point shooter, catch and shoot in particular. So that half-a-second decision that Kevin Young loves with players, Bruce Branch is right in the wheelhouse of guys that have a lot of success with Kevin Young. Think of like a Devin Booker, that type of shooting ability, and that's what Bruce Branch is. And you want more shooters on this team, but I think also the size has to improve for BYU's front court too, because, Keba Keita was, he took a step back offensively this past season, and Abdullah Bidu Ahmed, he was almost looked when he had joined the team mid-season as a missing piece that maybe could put them over the hump, and that just didn't materialize at all. It seemed like, it was a whirlwind for him to try to get up to speed, with the team. You naturally thought, he's a G League guy. He's going to quickly adapt, but that wasn't the case. So I think that front court needs a big overhaul, and then you pair it up with shooting as well. And, probably every team needs size and shooting ability, but for BYU, start with shooting and then try to identify some bigs that can maybe be more of an offensive threat too, along with, the specialties of, rim protection, which they did have with Keita and to a lesser extent Bidu Ahmed, but you need more offensive punch, I think, from that front court going forward for next year's team.
You saw these guys we had that discussion yesterday, just like, man, who's left in the NCAA tournament? You're like, oh, teams that just have massive size across the board, and really where it matters, and just big teams were a problem for BYU, even with 11-seeded Texas. And it's just like, hey, if you're going to spend all that money, let's start working on those stars and the height too. Let's get all the biggest people. If you're a BYU fan, that's probably what they're hoping for, is that they can get that size into BYU, and Kevin Young can find that next level. When you look at the rest of the teams that are in the tournament, Iowa State came up short, obviously. The final Big 12 team that's still hanging around, and Houston came up short, obviously, too. I was pretty shocked by that result, but it's the NCAA tournament. Things can happen. But Arizona has just been absolutely flawless, it seems like, just flying through the tournament. They're so good. They just grind everybody down. When you look at who's left of the Final Four, who's your odds-on favorite to win that national championship?
I would go with Arizona. This whole coaching search cloud of, North Carolina maybe looking at Tommy Lloyd. Is it Billy Donovan? Could that be a distraction? He was asked about that today, and he said he's focused. And, I don't think that's going to derail this Arizona team that just looks like an absolute machine. And going back to the size too, BYU did an excellent job of taking away the size of Arizona in both of the meetings that they had against the Wildcats in the regular season. Arizona just made them pay from the three-point shooting ability in Tucson, and then Jaden Bradley and Braden Burns were brilliant in Provo. But that's what I think made the outcome in the NCAA tournament for BYU so surprising against Texas was BYU had real success against Krivas and Toby Awaka, taking them away out of the game, and that just didn't show up against Texas, who even had a bigger five in Matas in that game. But, yeah, I think Arizona's the team to beat. I feel like that the winner of that Arizona-Michigan game is going to win it all. And, UConn is, a really tough out as well. I mean, this is a really good Final Four with great blend of NBA talent and elite size. So I think it's an outstanding Final Four. And, for programs like BYU, you had 3 games against these 4 teams. You went up against UConn, had it down to the wire, big hole like many BYU games, stormed back and were in the mix right there. And then against Arizona, you were in the mix in both of those games. So, BYU was pretty competitive. And, again, I think that's where the frustration for BYU is that they feel it every single day, night in, night out in the Big 12, how good this league is. And I still believe it was a really good league, especially based on the non-conference portion of the season. Like, to your point, the Houston game was a strange outcome against Illinois. But, BYU was battle-tested. They just I think there's been some valuable lessons that have been learned for Kevin Young as he continues to adjust his line of thought from NBA to college basketball. And now it's just the challenge of trying to, break through and make a deeper run again. He's already done it. I mean, Kevin Young's already got 2 wins in the NCAA tournament under his belt. It's not like a guy that hasn't had success. It's just when you got a generational guy like AJ, you wanted to capitalize, but that didn't happen. And I think though long term, and the way that the schedule that they played, which was a top 15 schedule this past season, and the quality of teams that they face and who who got to the Final Four, them having 3 games against these teams, I think it's a real good barometer of maybe a good sense of, what is it going to take to get it over the hump and make a deeper run for BYU. But it will be fun basketball to watch this upcoming weekend.
Final week of spring football for the BYU Cougars. What's some storylines that, or maybe just your overall thoughts on spring and what you learned about the Cougars over this month?
Bear Bachmeier could be the best quarterback in the Big 12. I think the Bear is going to be really good this season. He has to be, and I think that's going to be critical. But I think there is a real optimism and hope coming out of spring in this final week that Bear could be the best in the league. And I think he's taken a really big jump. And, the options now on the offense where he's got 3 plays thrown at him in every snap, I think that's big. I mean, and last year there felt like there was still a little bit of guardrails for Bear, even though they knew that he knew the offense much better than a typical true freshman, considering how late he arrived last, late May, early June on campus. But I think that, he takes a bigger step this year. And what's been impressive, I think, with Bear is he's still kind of just the down-to-earth guy. It doesn't seem like the fame, the spotlight is getting to him. And I think that's always noteworthy in this NIL environment where does that change a person? How does that impact the locker room, the dynamic? Because we hear so much about that with BYU's program. Do they still have a good locker room? And I think Bear is pretty grounded to where, like even someone like Paki Finau, a new player who just joined in January, he told me, I want to block for that guy and protect him at all costs because he's an absolute leader. And so I just think that sort of personality is huge at the quarterback position. And you also got a humble guy in LJ Martin too, who's, emerged as a leader. I mean, he was that last year, but he's really kind of confident and vocal more than he's ever been in his BYU career. And obviously he's still working his way back from the offseason surgery, and he'll be ready to go for the fall. But I think Bear is the biggest storyline to all of this. And I think there's this growing sense that he's really trending up in his ability, and he could maybe be the best quarterback potentially in the Big 12. And I think that's going to be required, I think, for BYU to get over the hump, because Texas Tech's still going to be an absolute beast that you don't want to deal with, and their schedule is really light. And I think that's going to show up. I know that the Big 12, there's always a game or two that we don't expect that's going to be tough, ends up being much more difficult than we think. But I feel like Texas Tech's schedule is so light that BYU might have to be perfect, as close to perfect as possible to keep up pace with them. And you got to have a brilliant quarterback to do that. And I think Bear could be that guy. And I think there's a lot of optimism in this final week of spring of what Bear Bachmeier's ability and the step he's going to take in his second year as a sophomore.
Every day the world gets a little weirder and a lot more awesome. Cool Stuff Daily takes a look at everything from mining in space to the latest in the fight against cancer to how AI is, basically changing everything. It's all the cool stuff you didn't know you needed to know. Join us for Cool Stuff Daily as we take a quick look at science, tech, and the wait, what stories that make you sound way smarter at dinner. Subscribe to Cool Stuff Daily now, because the future's happening fast, and it's way too fun to miss.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
I think the quarterback position is always fun. I bet the coaches, and Kalani's one of these guys too, probably too, that they love that the conversation that they're having about quarterback this time of year and frankly all the way through summer is, how about that battle for QB2? You know, like they don't have to worry about that number one guy.
Coaches love to answer that question.
So like, these guys are battling out there. And I started thinking about the quarterback situation at BYU, and I'm wondering what the timeline looks like over the next 2 or 3 years for BYU, and where Ryder Lyons fits into all this and where Bear's potential fits into all this. What's an ideal scenario, do you think, to be able to get max out of Bear and max out of your 5-star, or maybe he was turned into a 4-star, whatever it is now, the multi-star guy who's much anticipated in Ryder Lyons?
Well, I asked Aaron Roderick a while back about that. Like, what is the timeline that they've told Ryder Lyons about all this? Because no one wants to wait. They always want to compete. And he just basically put it at the cream will always rise to the top. And I think that's where this is an important year for Bear. I think he senses that because so much commitment and resources were put to Ryder Lyons. They were recruiting him from 8th grade on. That's been a multi-year deal. And same with Bear Bachmeier. They recruited him quite a bit until he went off the board early to Stanford, and they quickly pursued him in the portal, and he had a brilliant freshman season as a 12-win guy and did a fantastic job last season, was Big 12 freshman of the year on the offensive side. But, if there was a step back, and again, I don't think that's the case. I think Bear is going to be outstanding this year. But if there was a dip in production, well, it's pretty clear that you'd open it up, and the path is then cleared for Ryder to step right in. Or, if Bear takes that big jump, and I think he's going to. I think he's going to be really good this year. You create a situation where BYU has done a great job with, return missionaries. That's the one. There's many programs that have worked with return missionaries, but BYU, just because of the sheer volume, the way that they treat and have, as Kalani would say, the science. Look at the science of how we do it. We're looking at the scientists. They're so accustomed to working high-level athletes back from a mission, and they did a great job with Jaron Hall. And that was before this strength staff. This one, I think, is even better in the strength and conditioning side of things. And, that's a common theme that a lot of recruits talk about with BYU since Colby Clausen and Dr. Skylar Main, how impressed they've been with this strength and conditioning staff and the way that they go about their operation and their business, to where he comes back from a mission. The thought would be still 2027 is what he has laid out as his timeline to matriculate into the program, be part of the program. Maybe he's the clear-cut number 2, but in a perfect world, he's redshirting. I think, again, it's just Kalani's always said that he wants to have a quarterback factory, and he tells quarterbacks that can work here at BYU. It's worked in the past. Even though there's a transfer portal now, it can still work, and it worked for Jaron Hall. His patience paid off in getting him drafted as an NFL pick. Obviously, he would like to have been higher, but he was a pick, and he had an opportunity. He started in games in the National Football League. If he could have just stayed healthy, it could have been a different story for Jaron. So I think that, BYU feels really good about its quarterbacks, and no matter who's the QB1, they're optimistic that it's always going to be a top-level guy. And really, you look at the pipeline, how it's getting built out with Bear Bachmeier, Ryder Lyons, Enoch Watson, probably your QB3 to right now in the program, but he's a young freshman. He's had signs of being really good. I think he's got a big arm and he's got some promising future ahead. Once coached by Max Hall and Ty Detmer in Arizona. And you got Emerson Geilman from Bountiful High School. They love what the future of the quarterback position is at BYU right now, and of course the present with Bear Bachmeier leading the way. So I think they've got the peace of mind that no matter what happens at that spot, they're always going to have talent because they've kind of built up that position with the resources and the commitments that they've landed.
Every year in the transfer portal era, it seems BYU's been able to go out and get an impact defensive player in the portal who's made a difference. Obviously, Jack Kelly's the latest success story. Can Cade Uluwave be that next big success story on BYU's defense out of the transfer portal?
I think so, and they have had some really big recent success with the portal at that spot, and it's maybe to a lesser extent last year with Keanu Tanavasa, but it was a splash with the huge, just crossing rivalry lines in this state. Cade Uluwave is going to be, he's plug and play, instant, step right in, and he's going to be, I think, expected to be a star and expected to be an all Big 12 guy. And I think that's going to be the expectation for him. And, it's been interesting, too. I was just talking just moments ago with BYU's 2027 commit, Titan DeYoung, who's also from Mountain Ridge High School. Yep. Cade Uluwave was once there at Mountain Ridge, and, back in January when DeYoung was really kind of heating up his recruitment with BYU. he mentioned how, Kato Luave was talking to him and just saying, like, you got to be at BYU. Kelly Papinga is outstanding, just perfect fit. I mean, so, again, those sort of things I think just kind of resonate because we hear so much from coaches complaining about need guardrails. Players are leaving at first turn possible. Guys aren't bought in. First time adversity, they want to leave. BYU is just kind of finding guys that really immerse themselves. And look, Kato Luave's only got 1 year. This is it. This is the end of the road in his college career, and he's got to go make it even bigger potentially in the NFL. But they really bought in. And, talk with Kato Luave in spring ball, he just feels like he can play fast in this defense. He likes the scheme. He's going to be that inside linebacker in this defensive scheme under Kelly Papinga, and he likes the way that he fits. And I mean, that's why he's been at Cal, and he's been an absolute star in college football. And, he picks BYU over Michigan and Texas and some bluest of blue blood programs. He picked BYU, and he felt like part of it was trying to, feel like he was back at home. I think that kind of was a big pull for him because he's got strong family connections to Utah County and BYU, and he wanted to finish it off in Provo. And I think but the scheme, he really likes, and I think that he feels like he can step right in and be that impact player that Kelly was. And I think BYU feels like they've got a lot of guys, though, that can generate a pass rush with that outside backer, edge rusher type of players. Hunter Clegg's in that mix. Nusi Taumoi-Peau, of course, Isaiah Glasker as a linebacker. And they feel really good about, the personnel they've got there. And then, even returning home from a mission recently, DeVoe Tuataga, who was a heralded guy in the state, former 4-star player, he's back from a mission. So quietly, BYU and a lot of these names outside of Uluwave, they're underclassmen. So if they do hit now and BYU's ability to retain guys, you could really build up something for not only this year, but the years to come. So, Kelly Papinga's in a really good spot with his personnel. Maximizing Uluwave will be important for the top end success of this team in 2026. But BYU feels that they got more options than just Uluwave in terms of replacing Jack Kelly, because I think he's going to be a future NFL guy.
Mitch Harper. Mitch, thanks for joining us as usual. Have you guys been able to watch any kind of live anything during the spring for the media? Did they open up anything for you guys to be able to watch some legitimate back and forth?
We've had 4 media observations, 2 of which had the team 150 yards away, and even with binoculars, I couldn't see a thing. Then the 2 that were kind of customary, like what we've grown accustomed to in years past, where I got a full 20, 25 minutes. Yeah. To really break it down. I saw some good stuff in those.
Guys turning over some tires. The good stuff.
That 5th-string quarterback looks pretty good.
We did see some 1-versus-1s in the 2 where they were closest to the field, but there was 2 other media observations where it was just, they're like 150 yards away. I'm like, I have binoculars. I still can't make out anything. Hilarious. So it was just so that was kind of I looked around thinking, well, we're just here on the balcony, just chopping it up as media guys here up here, but there we got a little bit of some glimpses, and there's always ways to get the background intel and figure out what's moving and shaking down there. So there's always ways to gather what's trending up, and so this will be an interesting season for BYU to see if they can live up to expectations.
And if there are ways, Mitch Harper finds him. He is not to be defeated. So, Mitch, as usual, our BYU insider for KSLSports.com, the best in the biz. Mitch, thanks for hanging out, man.
Hey, you bet, guys. Take care.
There you go, Mitch Harper.
This is Mike Bolo of Lexicon Valley.
And I'm Bob Garfield. Are you one of those people who sometimes uses words?
Do you communicate or acquire information with, language?
Hey, us too. So join us on Lexicon Valley to chew over the history, culture, and many mysteries of English, plus some wisecracks.
Find us on one of those apps where people listen to podcasts.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.